Topological Poetics Research Institutes. Editorial Statement. The following should be considered as one possible instance of the Topological Poetics Research Institute's editorial statement. From here forward, I will refer to the Topological Poetics Research Institutes as TPRI. One way to think of TPRI is as an exploration in the possibilities of publishing, in the sense of making public today. Another way to think of TPRI is as an organ committed to research and study, wherein the assumption is that studying poetics is an infernal search for it again. TPRI operates within the becoming institutional of the world. TPRI was co-founded by myself and Cortland Bird in the spring of 2019, though inertial forces had already begun to form long ago in the form of Mono D Studios, co-founded by myself and Jeffrey Sobre in 2014. TPRI is part of Mono D Studios. Mono D Studios has published works by Amanda Hurtado, Corbin Bunyi, Zach Bird, Cortland Bird, and Brent Cox. It has also produced video works and held events such as Sound Poetry Karaoke, a live karaoke happening where all available songs are popular sound poems. So TPRI should be understood as part of an ecosystem of work in reference to Mono D Studios, like a grafted outgrowth, attractive evolution, or a dynamic electromagnetic field. TPRI also makes kin with Eco Poetry Workshop. TPRI organized 2 panels at the 2019 iteration of the And Now Conference at the University of Washington, Bothell. The first, Ask Not What Poetry Can Do for Video, but What Video Can Do for Poetry, included Cortland Bird, myself, Los Angeles-based filmmaker Zach Bird, Seattle-based performance poet, musician, artist Corbin Bunyi, and Madison MacArthur, poet, video artist, and PhD student at the University of California, Santa Cruz. The second panel, Toward Topological Poetics, Media and Materiality, the Impossibility of a Desaturated Media Environment, included Travis Sharp and Blair Johnson of University at Buffalo Poetics, and Amanda Hurtado, poet and PhD student at CU Boulder, and myself. Both panels will be documented and expanded on as forthcoming print and video publications. TPRI has also been producing 2 podcasts, TPRI Now and Buried Text. TPRI Now is an essayistic podcast detailing poetics research. One recent episode deals with white epistemological ignorance. Another explored the Deleuzian concept of the individual and includes a surprising use of the word by John Milton in Paradise Lost. TPRI Now will soon be published in the form of flash drives that will be distributed via mail and by hand. It consists of 6 episodes so far. Buried Text is a conversational podcast devoted to exploring poetic texts in an informal group setting. The cast includes Simon Eels, Zach Brown, Cortland Bird, and myself. Currently, there are 2 completed episodes and more on the way. This cast will soon be available all places casts are found. The first episode was devoted to a discussion of Min-Chien Ma's Negative Seeing, Robert Smithson, Earth Art, and the eco-phenomenology of mirror displacements. The second dealt with George Bataille's poem titled Poetry. We are open to queries for new podcasts to join the network. Our largest forthcoming work will be an application process to join the institution. Topological, Poetics, Research, Institutes. I would like to here discuss a bit of what TPRI might mean as an entity by going through its terms, focusing on institute for now. This will give you an idea of the type of activity emergent from or described by this quadrilateral terminological matrix. Let us begin with institute. The English word is derived from the Latin institute, principal stem of instituere, to set up, establish, found, appoint, ordain, begin, arrange, order, teach. It shares etymological roots with statute. The prefix "n" applied to the root statuary, established to cause to stand, suggests the word is a word of action. It is to make stand or be firm, to instatuate, that is, to ordain the ordinal. In this sense, there ought to be an intensely self-reflexive awareness of what is being instituted, what is being made to stand, in any and all instituting, institutions. We ask, can one institute accidentally by joining? Can one join an institution without knowledge about what one is making stand? Joining prefigures not a continued making stand, but something apparently standing on its own that we become. It calls to mind the joint of a piece of furniture, or the articulation of artifice. As members of various institutions, it would serve the etymological foundations of the word to know as much as possible about what it is our institutions make stand, join, and articulate. Institutions institute. At the very heart of the institution is a verb of action. But something changed in the 16th century when the word becomes fixed into English. It wasn't until the 1540s that institute gained its nominative form as an organization or society devoted to some specific work, especially literary or scientific. I think this is a telling etymological shift from a word of praxis to a word of nomination, from an active process to an artificial fixity. Suddenly, institute transforms from verb to noun without changing even a letter. The processual living law of making stand, instatuation, becomes the way we name those things that seem to stand even without their social actors, institutions. One of the USA's earliest such institutions, of course, is the peculiar institution of slavery. Institutions require not institutional critique, but an investigation of negative knowledge in the form of instituting. The negative knowledge of an institution is that knowledge instituting forecloses access to. It is that knowledge imagined as always outside the institution that thereby defines the institution's activity. TPRI is devoted to negative knowledge. The verb to noun shift in the etymological history of institute is what in part brings into being the psychic fixing of our social worlds, so that now we can say a weird phrase, the institution of this or that, which means to bring about something to be, to make it stand, which is what the word institute already did without the nominative form. Institutions take on the corporeal fixity of demi-divine bodies in their noun form. They become elsewheres from us. Not coincidentally, this occurs over the course of the long secularization of sovereign power. Institutes, the kind associated with literature and the sciences, were those Habermasian forms of lay organization that legitimated knowledge outside of monarchical representational sovereignty. And so our institutions became what we stand for, forgetting that we make stand by instituting. The institution is the recorporealization of the sovereign in the form of lay power. Its nounification ordains the word with a quasi-religious valence. It allows one to say things like, I stand for the institutions of the United States of America, for example. To say I stand for this or that institution is to say that one stands for what an institution makes stand. Thus the phrase forgets by repeating that one already makes institutions stand by joining. One also institutes by having been made to stand for an institution's negative knowledge. Such it is to be born a citizen. The negative knowledge of a given institution is the expressed and the implicit world institutions erase by making themselves stand, crippling the non-citizen by its logic, by denying the other legs. When I join the institution, an institution such as the university, my joining is a joint of articulation, making it stand. My joining also reproduces the negative knowledge the institution is defined by and requires to persist. When we think we can join the institution but not stand for it, we might be correct. But that is because we do not stand for institutions, we make them stand. We might think we can participate in institutions but not stand for them, that we can be within institutions but refuse them. Whether that refusal to stand for takes the form of public protest, or whether it is thought to exist as an inner refusal, either case, the performative public refusal, the private inner refusal, equally makes stand the institution it seeks to refute. In both, we abstract from reality the fact that what we don't do is stand for. What we do is make stand. A passive standing for or standing apart from self-institution, rather than a making stand, characterizes and describes how institutions seem to take on a life of their own. The Topological Poetics Research Institutes, perhaps by now is clear, aims to make stand rather than to stand for. The name of TPRI amounts to an incomplete sentence. It should not be read as an institute or a plurality of institutes devoted to topological poetics research. It is not a noun, plural or singular. It should be read as the beginning of a sentence, a predicate in search of its subject, endlessly discovering the subject's absence in its act of suspended self-naming. It is easy to see if you read it this way: Topological Poetics Research Institutes